special birthday interviews. This is 4 years. We cannot believe it. And I am so honored to have Anne Wooten with us. She is an author, speaker, trainer, coach, and I would add evangelist too, because she has a heart for Jesus and loves to share about him. And I've seen it firsthand, which is amazing. She has been a remarkable coach who has been transforming lives through faith and confidence. You're going to hear probably throughout this her structure and what God's given her so powerfully. You're also going to hear about some new things that are dropping pretty soon, and we're pretty excited about that. Anne's journey as a kingdom entrepreneur and coach has inspired many in our community. And today she's here to share her insights and celebrate some truly uplifting milestones. Anne, thank you so much for joining us here and being a part of this.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor and it's a blessing. I'm just humbled.
Same. Amen.
Oh my word. You guys, genuinely, I'm so excited about this conversation today. And I have to start it out with Anne, girl, how did you get started with being a coach? Tell us the background, what it was that led you to start, and also where you got the heart for the people that you're called to serve. I am dying to hear about this.
Actually, I wondered that myself when I stepped away from 50 years being in the accounting profession and the corporate world. Because when I left that and God told me to step out, I was at a crossroads, I should say. And I was just asking, who am I right now? Who do you want me to be, God? And prior to that, my faith had been kind of fluctuating through many years because I have spent years wrestling with, people pleasing, that self doubt, and everything, the weight of perfectionism, because I was always striving, but never felt like I measured up. And now, because you find your identity is wrapped up in what that is rather than who you are in Christ. But that shift didn't happen until I had to walk through and grasp what was triggering all that fear.
Wow.
And that was forgiveness. But I had to understand what that forgiveness was. And
Wow.
I had to understand forgiveness and
Wow.
walk through it because I believe you've got to take care of yourself before you can actually forgive anyone else. But my case, I was my own worst enemy. But because I just wasn't living by faith, I was
Yeah.
living because I was putting the emphasis on myself, pleasing others and not pleasing God.
Wow.
And that will take and it will eat at your core and it will eat you up physically, mentally, emotionally, if you do not grasp and acknowledge them. And I didn't know when I stepped away. I said, God, what am I going to do? Well, as soon as I did that, I knew I had been writing. I had a love for creative writing that was developed later in life. And through that, I took a writing entrepreneurship beta writing course. Through that, I heard a lot of writers were coaches. Ding, something went off in my brain. And as soon as that happened, then I've shared this before, but my cousin who knew Francine personally when you guys lived in North Carolina, and through a private message from my cousin, that's when Francine, and when I spoke with Francine, it was like a light bulb went off and you were called to be a coach. I didn't know what that coaching would be, but then after being certified about a year ago under Francine's leadership, mentorship, I discovered that my story, what I've been through, is what I'm called now to help others with.
Wow. Wow. You mentioned the word forgiveness, and boy, it just really jumped out at me. And I know that throughout the time of coaching, it's been pretty key to you building your coaching program. A lot of times people think that forgiving someone sets them free. Yet, our talking, we've realized no, forgiveness sets you free when
Mhm.
you forgive. And it seems to be key to unlocking a lot of things. What would you say about that? How, if you were speaking to someone right now that is just struggling with the idea of forgiving someone?
The one thing I would say is you cannot control what other people have done to you
Mm,
because We own our own actions, our
Mm,
emotions, our behavior. We
mhm,
own that. Forgiveness is all about, yes, grasping what you need to ask God to forgive you, but it's more than that. It is letting it go, but you have to release that to God. And what I would
mhm,
say, if it is someone that hurt you, betrayal, that trauma is,
mm,
it's about your relationship with God. That forgiving that other person is essential in your connecting with God,
mm,
because it's not, God will take care of the other person because you can't control what happens to them. You
mm.
can't control their actions. You can only control yours. So
Yes.
this coaching is all about your relationship with God.
Man. As you're sitting there talking, I think about some of the pillars in your coaching and the fact that it's going to take faith in order to forgive in areas you've held on to for a really long time, whether it's forgiving yourself or whether forgiving someone else. But that faith leads to the freedom that we're all wanting, right? And I think
Mhm.
that there are people out there that don't realize, they have no idea the things that they're being held back from because they just won't let go. And the God deals with the situation and will deal with the situation, and you leave it to Him, right? Our job is just to let it go and let God have it. So good. I know that you're about to release a 3-session challenge, a boot camp, right? You're and what is it? The Faith Lift Challenge Breakthrough to Godfidence. Is that where we're going?
That's it.
Yep.
Breakthrough to confidence.
Yes. What motivated you to create this boot camp, and what can the clients expect to gain from that experience?
They're going to get a understanding of what the fake news or the lies that causes. I love saying fake news because that's exactly what it is.
Yes.
And our inner critic wreaks havoc. We all have it. We're all
Mm,
going to have it for the rest of our lives. But that inner critic is the false narrative that leads us to the fear, that leads us to the
wow.
worry, that leads us to the anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to educate them what the inner critic does and
Mm-hmm.
what it is. And it's based it all on biblical principles. But I'm also educating them on exactly what it is,
Mm-hmm.
especially the brain part and what each part of the three areas of the brain, the primary three areas of the brain, and what that applies to the scientific part. Because I believe you need to bring in and educate them on the scientific. It's just a brief overview of that, but I think it's so important. And then you go from that and you talk about the fearful plan. In other words, it's fear holds you back from what
Mm.
God's plan is. And
Wow.
that's where I will educate them on the different types of fear, the four responses to fear:
Mm.
fight, flight, freeze, and fawn.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I think it's important to have a brief overview of what two different types of fear: the fear of man versus the fear of God.
Mm.
I am passionate about the fear of God because it's
Mm-hmm.
not talked about enough in
Mm-hmm.
today's society. And
Yes.
it needs to be, because I believe it's one of the pillars and the foundations on where our faith is built. It's
Wow.
why we want to tremble, and the desire why we have that yearning to not ever be separated from God. And then
Wow.
lastly, it's just the fearful plan. I'm a fearful plan. Sorry, I just said that. But it's really about why faith has to be the foundation. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just as simple as that. And we
Yeah.
go into that. I go a little bit more into what faith is, the Merriam-Webster version of it, plus why God says what faith is.
Mm.
Because faith, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. All we can do is live in the present.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really just educating them on exactly what faith is and
Mm-hmm.
why it just has to be the firm foundation.
Wow. Can you imagine in 3 sessions conquering the inner critic, conquering fear, And actually, the way you're showing that, it appears that there's the fear of man, which causes the inner critic. I think there's this catch 22 thing that happens, and then walking away with a stronger faith. How powerful is that? Sid Reagan, is there anything?
Yeah. Oh my word. So much good. And the things that just like that was you mentioned earlier, people pleasing, but it made me just think how cool it was that even though you were struggling with people pleasing and forgiveness, and then God like you through forgiveness and then walks you into freedom. And
Mm,
then you're part of this writing group, you're stepping out from accounting, even though that was a comfortable place, you step into coaching. And I think the question that I have is you made this statement, God, who am I now?
mm,
And that is something that just, wow, that question. And so I'd love you to, if you don't mind, unpack that a little bit more because I feel like, single one of us, we go through transition periods. We go through a moment where we feel the change coming. Where did you start to see that? And what helped you to see that God was calling you to take on become a coach? That was who he was calling you into now.
Well, stepping out of accounting and leaving a secure job to go to nothing, relying on him, is the simple, hardest decision I've ever made. 5 or 6 months that led up to that previously, working in accounting and within the company I worked for, there were different divisions. And you can, I think in accounting, sometimes you notice changes more than some other areas of work. And I knew I could just see things were not happening the way the company thought. So there was
mm,
some pushback. The people leave. And
mhm,
what I had a lot of stress through the first 5 or 6 months of 2023.
mm,
And writing was a very first and foremost my passion of mine because
mhm,
it led me to start being transparent when I was writing the blog one day at a time. But what I will say up to that is when my manager, I worked on a really tight knit Christian women. We were all Christian women. I don't get that very much, but God blessed me with that.
mm,
But when she gave her notice, I knew something was up. 2 weeks later, another person gave their notice. That would have left me the top senior person on the team to do their work plus mine.
mm,
And I knew I would be taken away. My faith, this work would overcome me.
mhm.
And so I said, God, what do you want me to do? He said, on my birthday, literally in June of that year,
Wow.
that morning, God said, you need to leave and step down. I was tearing up. I was fighting it because I didn't want to leave the financial insecurity.
Mhm,
But this is where I had to step away and I had to learn, God had to teach me to rely on Him for all provisions, financial and everything. To this
mhm.
day, He has done that.
Wow.
So that is how I didn't know when I was going to be called to do, but I had to if I had not made that decision and faced one of the most uncomfortable things of just totally allowing him to provide the
Mhm.
finances, the food, the roof over my head, that's what it takes to step out in faith.
Wow,
And I'm living proof it can be done.
man. So, what do you think would be the biggest growth or life change that you've made or that you feel since stepping out into your calling?
There's been so many, but I will tell you, it's really I would like to say the financial provisions
Mhm,
that I was so frustrated over that
mhm,
because I was scared half to death.
mhm,
Because what I didn't know then, what I did know now, the
mhm,
division that I worked for at the
mhm.
end of 2024, they closed it down. So
Yeah.
I would have been without a job right now. And
Wow.
God called me then because I know that I could not have taken that beta writing course. I could not have gone to coaching that
Mm,
He's led me to and tried to work either part or full time. There was no way. I had to let go and trust Him for everything.
wow.
And it's been a challenge, I will not say, but I have learned to absolutely trust on my God for everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't do it any other way.
Oh,
Wow.
that's huge.
Mhm.
I'm just thinking about just the people that are listening and just hearing that step of faith of just saying, like, never know the timing and why God's calling us to do something scary, but it's in that moment of, God, I trust you, not what I see. I trust you more than what I've known, that we get to see, whole hindsight's 2020, but there's a process, right? Like it was a year and a half later that you found out, oh, it was closing down, right? Like you wouldn't have known that, but that was a year and a half after God said step down. And so the fact that you were like, okay, I trust you and I will just walk this. And I know I'm seeing the uncomfortability. And I think that that's something that God walks us through whenever He's transitioning us. It's just like the eagle mother that whenever she knows that her eaglets are ready to fly, she starts making the nest super uncomfortable. And so, whenever we're in that place of, I'm just uncomfortable and it's like getting worse, it's that moment of, okay, I see that you're transitioning me and I need to make this decision to just walk forward. I know that's what we experienced 4 years ago
Mm.
as we were stepping into starting consumed. So that's huge. Just, man, whenever you're on this journey, just learning the beautiful aspect that's hard to learn, but so simple is
Mm.
that trusting the Lord is far greater than anything we can imagine. And he opened so many doors. I was just thinking about it. You went on this like through and it came to a retreat last year and you got to meet people that you've known online and like whole crazy adventure and just all of these different things that got opened up because of your step of faith. And that's on a personal level, but knowing the breakthrough that people are receiving through you on podcasts, because you've been on so many podcasts, you've spoken, you've written books, you've putting out devotionals, like these things that are happening and God's opened those doors and because people's lives are being changed and
Mhm.
just amazes me. And so I just want to say, like, as entrepreneurs, I know we don't get this much, but I am so amazed and just proud standing back and just watching the way that you are impacting lives. And I'm so thankful that we at Consumed get to be a part of it. And
Thank
just know we're cheering you on so big.
you.
I am just so thankful and blessed for God leading me to you two are powerhouses. The whole company is, and everyone that I was blessed to have met, last year. And it's just like I can't imagine being anywhere else, and I wouldn't.
We wouldn't want you anywhere. We would chase you down.
Literally.
So if someone's listening right now and they're on the edge of just really jumping off and answering the call of God on their life, what is one tip or one encouragement you would give them?
I would really say, like myself, it is never too late.
Love
God
it.
will always, like you always said, God calls us and He will equip us.
Yes.
He doesn't call the equipped because none of us are equipped when we first start. I've started out messy. You guys have done it. We've all done that.
Mhm.
But to one person, if you're sensing that, if you have a really strong relationship with God and you feel like He is calling you to do
Mm.
something and you're scared of coming out of your comfort zone, we've all
Mhm.
been there. But if you feel like He is definitely calling you to do something uncomfortable, then 9 times out of 10, that is going to be God asking you to take that leap of faith. And
Yes.
it is never too late. We are learning until He calls any of us home.
I love that. And what a great word. And if that was a word for you, I want you to comment wherever you are. If you're listening to this way later on YouTube, or if you're with us right now in our 4 year celebration, I want you to comment that you needed that, right? That somebody, I just feel it in my bones. Someone thought, it's past. I waited too long. And Anne just told you, no, you did not. So super excited. I know Anne has this challenge coming up. We're super excited about it. We're going to drop some links for you to know how to connect. We also have links for her blog and links for ways to connect with her. And I would assume the best way for them to get in touch with you, you have a URL for that, right?
Basically, if you go to my website, that has
Mhm.
everything.
Yeah,
The free resources at annwooten.com. That is
excellent.
just the best way to schedule a call, or when the boot camp, the challenge does come, when it's official, it'll be all the links and everything will be there on the website.
Excellent. So annwooten.com. We'll have all those links down in the description as well. I know Reagan has a fun question to ask you as we wrap up.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. So if you could have coffee with anyone from the Bible or leader, history, anybody, who would
Yeah.
it be and why?
I'm going to say Paul.
Pick.
I say Paul because he was originally Saul and he was a murderer.
Mhm.
But and I think it's in Acts where it talks about his conversion, where God took him. If God can take a murderer like Saul, and when he was in that transformation, he became Paul. Paul wrote most of as we both know, he wrote most of the New Testament.
Mhm.
He wrote that mostly when he was imprisoned for he is a man of faith. He didn't let him being in prison keep him from what he was called to do.
Wow.
And he was a gifted writer. So
Yes.
you can do it. You can do it from anywhere, but you have to have the faith of
Wow.
and that's why I say Paul.
Yes. I love
Oh,
that.
I love it.
One of the things I love about Paul is that he took his zeal that was pointed the wrong direction and turned it toward Jesus, pointed in the right direction, which I absolutely love. And thank you so much for agreeing to do this, and such a special conversation. And I know that we're going to have many more as God continues to grow your coaching business and grow your writing business, and and I know that there's a little bit of a future of a possible podcast at some point in your life and coming up, and I'm so excited about that potential too. So we will definitely be keeping an eye out for Anne, won't we?
Well,
Yeah.
thank you for having me. It's great to be part of this celebration.
Yeah.
And happy birthday to Consumed Coaching.
Yes. Woohoo. I keep telling Reagan we need to go ahead and buy the pom poms.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thanks, you guys. Get ready for our next interview. We'll see you soon.